What if I told you that the person who saves your life might be someone you've passed 100 times and never truly seen? Tonight's story is about a man who had everything the world could offer and lost it all in a single night. But when he hit rock bottom, help came from the one place no one expected, a woman the world ignored, but heaven didn't. Hey there, family. Welcome back to Unbroken Truths. How are you doing today? And where in the world are you watching from? If you're new here, make sure to subscribe because the story you're about to hear will remind you that miracles don't always wear suits. It started on a cold night in Chicago, the kind that makes the city lights look sharper, the streets quieter, and the loneliness louder. Ethan Shaw, a billionaire tech CEO, sat alone in his glass-walled office, 40 stories above the ground, staring down at a city that once made him feel powerful. But tonight, even the skyline couldn't silence the storm brewing inside him. In just 1 week, his company Shaw Dynamics was set to sign a $9 billion merger, the biggest deal of his life, the kind that would immortalize his name on the covers of magazines and history books. He straightened his tie, reached for his glass of whiskey, and then his computer screen flickered. Once, twice, then darkness. A warning popped up. System breach detected. He froze. Another alert followed, then another, and another. Files vanished before his eyes, code lines dissolving like melting ice, bank accounts, contracts, intellectual property, everything he had built, disappearing in real time. Panic clawed at his chest. He called his CTO with no answer. Security voicemail. It was 2:37 a.m., and the empire he spent 15 years building was collapsing in silence. He slammed his hand on the desk. Not tonight, not like this. That's when he heard the soft squeak of a cleaning cart rolling down the hallway. The door opened slightly, and a woman peeked in, mid-30s, dark skin, gentle eyes, wearing a gray uniform and holding a mop. "I'm sorry, sir," she said quietly. "I didn't know anyone was still up here." Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's fine. You're not interrupting anything, except maybe the end of my life's work." Her gaze shifted to the monitors behind him. Her brows knitted. "That looks like a ransomware breach," she murmured softly. "The kind of statement no ordinary cleaner would make." Ethan blinked. "You know what that is?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I used to work in cybersecurity. Before," her voice trailed off. And in that moment, for the first time all night, Ethan stopped seeing just a janitor. He saw something else, something he couldn't explain yet. Naomi hesitated for a moment, glancing at the flickering monitors that lit the empty office in a haunting blue glow. Ethan studied her, the quiet confidence in her tone, the calm steadiness in her eyes. She didn't look afraid. She looked familiar with chaos. "Cybersecurity?" he repeated, almost in disbelief. Naomi nodded, her voice soft but sure. "Yes, sir. I worked for a private tech firm once, until life changed directions." She said it with a kind of quiet dignity, the kind that comes from someone who's lost more than she'll ever say aloud. Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. He wanted to ask what she meant, but something in her expression, that fragile mix of pride and pain, stopped him. Instead, he gestured toward the screens. "If you really know what you're talking about, maybe you can help me understand what's happening." Naomi set her mop aside, pulled off her gloves, and with careful, deliberate steps, walked toward his desk. Her hands hovered over the keyboard like someone remembering an old language they once spoke fluently. Within seconds, her fingers began to move gracefully, precise, confident. She didn't panic. She diagnosed the screen flooded with command lines. Ethan watched, speechless. For a man who spent his life surrounded by genius minds, he had never seen anyone work like her. Every tap of the keyboard seemed to pulse with quiet power. It was strange how silence could reveal so much. Because in that silence, Ethan began to see pieces of himself in her. He saw exhaustion in the way her shoulders slumped slightly forward. He saw years of endurance written in the small cracks around her knuckles. She wasn't just working tonight, she was fighting to stay standing. And he knew that feeling too well. Behind the polished suits and the billion-dollar smile, Ethan Shaw was a man running on fumes. He had everything money could buy, but he spent years losing everything it couldn't. A father who died believing he raised a disappointment. A mother who hadn't spoken to him in 5 years. A marriage that ended quietly without fights, just silence and distance. He told himself he was too busy building an empire. But truthfully, he just didn't know how to be vulnerable anymore. He built walls, high, unbreakable walls. Until tonight, when those walls came crashing down in front of a stranger with gentle eyes and calloused hands. Naomi Carter, on the other hand, carried her own invisible weight. Once, she was brilliant, one of the youngest analysts at a leading cybersecurity firm. Her mind could see patterns others missed, predict threats before they struck. But all of that ended when her husband, Gabriel, was diagnosed with cancer. She spent every dollar on his treatments, every night beside him in the hospital. When he passed, the debt swallowed her whole. And when her firm downsized, she was the first to go. No savings, no references, no family left to call. So she did what she had to. She picked up a mop, put her degree in a drawer, and started cleaning offices of people who once worked for her. People like Ethan Shaw. As Naomi continued typing, she explained softly, "They've used a worm script to infect your core servers. It's rewriting your security keys, but..." She paused, scanning a line of code. "There's something else here. Someone inside your company planted this." Ethan frowned. "Inside?" She nodded slowly. "This isn't random. Someone knew exactly how to hurt you." Her words hit him like ice water. He wanted to deny it, but deep down, he already knew she was right. In business, betrayal wasn't rare, but this felt personal. For the next hour, Naomi worked in near silence. Ethan watched her every move. Every time she leaned closer to the monitor, the glow caught the side of her face, highlighting quiet determination. And then, for a brief second, he saw her hand tremble. She quickly hid it, but he noticed. "Hey," he said quietly, "you should rest. I can call someone in the morning." She shook her head. "If we wait until morning, it'll be too late." There was no pride in her voice, just conviction. He found himself staring again, not at her beauty, but at the kind of strength that only life's hardest battles can teach. By 4 a.m., she finally stepped back, her breathing slow, her fingers slightly trembling. "I've stopped the breach," she whispered. "But the damage..." Ethan turned toward her. "Can it be reversed?" She nodded faintly. "If I can access your root backups before sunrise." He hesitated. "Do it." Naomi nodded, pulling a flash drive from her pocket. And for the next several minutes, Ethan watched the unthinkable. A night cleaner, resurrecting the digital heart of a billion-dollar company. But what Ethan couldn't see was that Naomi wasn't just saving his empire. She was saving herself too. Because for the first time in years, she felt useful, powerful, and alive again. And as the first light of dawn spilled through the skyscraper windows, both of them stood there in silence. Two people from opposite worlds, brought together by chaos and bound by something neither could yet name. Sometimes, God doesn't send angels with wings. Sometimes, he sends them with cleaning gloves and tired eyes. And sometimes, he uses a broken system to fix two broken souls at once. Morning sunlight spilled across the polished marble floors of Shaw Dynamics. It was quiet now, too quiet. The night before felt like a dream, or maybe a warning that the storm was only beginning. Ethan stood by the window, watching the city come alive below him. But his eyes were somewhere else, trapped in the chaos Naomi had uncovered. He turned as the elevator doors opened. Naomi stepped out, wearing the same plain uniform, her eyes tired but focused. She went home for only an hour of rest before returning. "Good morning, Mr. Shaw," she said softly. Her tone was polite, distant again, the kind of respect that people wear as armor when they don't want to be seen too deeply. Ethan offered a faint smile. "You didn't have to come back this soon." Naomi shook her head. "I couldn't leave the job halfway done." He admired that. Maybe more than he should have. In a world where loyalty was bought, Naomi's dedication felt sacred. She moved to the computer again, inserting the flash drive she created last night. "I was able to stop the breach," she said, "but whoever did this, they weren't just trying to destroy your data." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Naomi zoomed into a line of encrypted code. "They planted something inside your financial system, a backdoor that reroutes transactions in small, unnoticeable amounts over time." Ethan leaned closer, his heartbeat picking up. "How long has this been happening?" Naomi hesitated. "Months. Maybe longer. You've been bleeding money quietly, and no one noticed." He sank into his chair, rubbing his temples. His empire wasn't just under attack, it was being eaten alive from the inside. Naomi's voice dropped lower. "I ran a trace on the digital signature embedded in the worm, It leads back to one of your senior executives. Ethan froze. Who? Naomi hesitated again. She almost didn't want to say it. Liam Grant. The name felt like glass in his throat. Liam wasn't just an executive. He was his protege, the young man Ethan had mentored since college, the one he called family. Ethan laughed bitterly. Liam? He wouldn't. Naomi interrupted softly. Mr. Shaw, I double-checked the encryption. It's his access key, his handwriting in the code. He knew your systems better than anyone else. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Ethan's empire was falling apart, and the knife had been twisted by someone he trusted like a son. He turned away from her, his reflection staring back from the glass. Why would he do this? He whispered. Naomi's voice was gentle. Greed makes monsters of good men, and sometimes good men let pride blind them until it's too late. Her words cut through him, because once upon a time, Ethan had been blind, too proud to listen, too busy chasing more. He built an empire so high that he couldn't see the people at the bottom anymore, and now the bottom was rising up to meet him. Naomi worked in silence for a while, scanning files, repairing corrupted data, but she could feel the weight in the room pressing against them both. After a long pause, Ethan finally asked, Naomi, why did you help me? You could have just walked away last night. She didn't answer immediately. When she finally did, her voice trembled slightly. Because I know what it's like to lose everything and have no one believe you can rise again. Ethan looked up at her. Their eyes met, two worlds colliding quietly between grief and grace. She went on. When my husband got sick, I begged for help. I begged the same company I worked for to cover part of his treatment. They refused. They said policy didn't allow it. I lost him, and then I lost my job. But what hurt the most wasn't the money. It was realizing that people only value you for what you can give them. Her voice cracked. And last night, when I saw you standing there, losing everything, I recognized that look. It's the look of someone who's finally realizing that money doesn't buy peace. Ethan swallowed hard, unable to speak. Naomi turned back to the screen, typing again. She was building a countertrace, trying to gather evidence before the saboteur wiped everything clean. Her fingers moved fast, but not fast enough. Suddenly, the monitors flashed red. A message appeared. Nice try, Naomi. Her breath caught. Ethan's heart stopped. How does he know your name? Ethan demanded. Naomi's face went pale. She stared at the screen, disbelief spreading like ice through her veins. Because I trained him. Ethan blinked. What? Naomi's voice dropped to a whisper. Before I lost my job, I mentored junior analysts at Helix Tech. Liam was one of them. The realization hit both of them like a thunderclap. This wasn't just business revenge. It was personal, and it was aimed at both of them. Naomi's eyes darted across the monitor. He's in the system right now, trying to erase everything. Ethan leaned over her shoulder. Can you stop him? Her voice shook slightly. I can try. The room filled with the sound of clacking keys. Urgent, desperate. Code filled the screens like digital fire. For every lock Naomi placed, Liam's ghost in the system broke 3 more. Then suddenly, everything went black. The monitors went dark. The building lights flickered. Ethan shouted, What happened? Naomi's voice was barely a whisper. He triggered a full purge. Your entire financial system is being wiped clean. Ethan's chest tightened. Can't you override it? Naomi shook her head, her voice breaking. Not without access to his master key, and the only copy would be on his personal drive. Ethan slammed his fist on the desk. Then we find him. Naomi looked up at him. You mean confront him? Yes, Ethan said, his voice low, steady. He thinks I'm done. He thinks he's won, but he doesn't know what you've already recovered. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. For the first time, there was fire in her eyes. Not fear, but resolve. They drove together later that night, the city lights flashing across the windshield as rain poured down. Ethan's jaw was tight, his mind spinning. Naomi sat beside him, typing on her laptop, tracing the last known IP ping of Liam's system access. Finally, she whispered, I've got it. He's working from an offshore relay, but his physical access point is local. He's in the East Tower, right now. Ethan parked his car hard, tires screeching. He turned to her. You don't have to come up there. Naomi closed the laptop and met his gaze. I didn't come this far to watch from the sidelines. He nodded slowly. For the first time in his life, Ethan Shaw didn't feel like the one doing the saving. He felt like he was being led by the very woman the world ignored. As they stepped into the empty lobby of the East Tower, the lights flickered again. Naomi's pulse quickened. This wasn't just about recovering data anymore. This was about uncovering truth and reclaiming the dignity both of them had lost. They moved together quietly, floor by floor, until Naomi whispered, "He's here." The door to the server room stood slightly ajar. A faint blue glow spilled from within. And inside sat Liam Grant, calm, smiling as if he'd been waiting for them all along. And with that moment, everything Ethan believed about loyalty, forgiveness, and justice was about to be tested in ways he never imagined. Because what Liam was about to say next would not only shatter Ethan's trust, but expose a truth about Naomi that even she didn't know was buried in her past. The server room was cold, the kind of cold that bit through your jacket and crawled down to your bones. Rows of blinking machines stood like silent witnesses, their lights pulsing with quiet menace. Ethan stepped inside, his shoes echoing on the polished floor. Naomi followed, clutching the laptop close to her chest, and there he was, Liam Grant, sitting casually on a swivel chair, spinning slowly to face them, a faint smirk playing at the corner of his lips. "Well, well," he said, his tone smooth and cruel. "The king and his cleaning lady, quite the partnership." Ethan's voice was tight with rage. "What did you do, Liam?" Liam chuckled, leaning back. "What did I do? Ethan, I just gave you what you gave me nothing." Naomi stepped forward. "You stole millions. You destroyed people's lives." He turned to her, eyes glinting. "Funny. You talk about destruction, Naomi, but you forget you built this entire system. Without your old code from Helix, none of this would have been possible." Naomi froze. Her breath caught in her throat. "What did you say?" Liam tilted his head, almost pitying her. "You think you're just some humble janitor who stumbled into heroism? Please. The same tools I used to tear down Ethan's empire came from the firewall you designed years ago. You built the walls that I learned to climb." Naomi's mind spun. She wrote that code long before she lost her husband, back when she still believed in her company and fairness, in systems that protected people. But after she was fired, Helix Tech must have sold that code and it ended up in Ethan's corporate infrastructure. She looked at Liam in horror. "You used my work to destroy him?" Liam shrugged. "I just adapted it. You left the blueprints lying around. Don't act surprised when someone uses them better than you did." Ethan stepped closer, his voice a controlled growl. "You learned from Naomi. I gave you everything, mentorship, access, trust, and you repay that by gutting my company?" Liam's smirk faltered slightly. "Your company? You mean our company? The one I ran while you were too busy buying yachts and trophies?" Ethan's eyes darkened. "I built this from nothing, and I kept it alive." Liam shot back. "While you played savior to your image, you call yourself self-made, Ethan, but you made yourself out of other people's sacrifices." The words hit hard, because somewhere deep down, Ethan knew there was truth in them. Naomi could see it too, the shame flickering in his eyes, the realization that for years he rewarded loyalty with distance and ambition with silence. Liam stood, walking toward them, every step echoing like a warning. "You think I wanted to destroy you? No, I wanted you to see, to watch everything you worship fall apart, just like you watched me struggle for years without lifting a hand." He turned to Naomi. "And you, Naomi, you're no saint either. You built the code that enslaved workers to the system. You think scrubbing floors redeems that?" Naomi's lips trembled. She wanted to shout, to defend herself, but she couldn't. Because again, somewhere deep down, he wasn't entirely wrong. Ethan stepped closer. "You're right," he said quietly. Both Naomi and Liam froze. Ethan continued, his voice steady, raw, human. "You're right about me. I built my fortune and forgot the faces behind it. I buried myself in numbers, in control, and when the world started falling apart, I thought I could fix it by throwing money at it." He looked at Naomi, his tone softening. "Then she walked in, with a mop and a bucket, and in one night, she did more to save me than I'd done for anyone in 10 years. Liam sneered. "Touching speech. But it's too late. Your files, your backups, everything's already gone." Naomi stepped forward now, calm but resolute. "Not everything." She lifted her laptop. "I created a shadow clone before you started your purge. Everything you deleted is mirrored right here." Liam's smirk dropped. "You're bluffing." Naomi smiled faintly. "Am I?" The tension in the room was electric. Liam lunged toward her desk, but Ethan grabbed his arm mid-stride. The two men struggled, crashing into one of the server racks. Sparks flew. Alarms blared. Naomi moved fast, sliding behind another terminal, typing furiously as the lights flickered again. Liam shoved Ethan backward and lunged toward her once more. "Give me the drive!" But Naomi didn't back down. Her voice cut through the chaos like steel. "You already took everything once. You're not taking this too." He reached for her, but Ethan tackled him hard, slamming him to the ground. The sound echoed through the steel chamber, the sound of betrayal breaking. When it was over, Ethan stood, breathing hard, staring down at the man he once called a brother. Liam glared up at him, defeated but defiant. Ethan's tone was cold now. "You had everything you needed to build your own empire. You didn't have to destroy mine." Liam spat bitterly. "Because no one would have listened. You don't understand what it's like being invisible, Ethan. I watched you walk into every room like you owned the air. I just wanted, for once, to make the world see me." Ethan hesitated. For a brief moment, beneath the bitterness, he saw the small boy Liam must have been once, desperate for recognition, desperate for someone to say, "You're enough." But Ethan also saw Naomi, standing quietly with the laptop clutched to her chest. A woman who was invisible too, yet chose mercy instead of revenge. Ethan exhaled slowly. He crouched beside Liam and said quietly, "You wanted to be seen? Then see what you've done." He nodded toward Naomi. "She built this system to protect people, and you twisted it to hurt them. You didn't fight for justice, Liam, you fought for attention." Liam looked away, his jaw clenched. Ethan stood and turned to Naomi. "Can you trace the stolen funds?" She nodded. "Most of them. But it'll take time. Then let's do it. Together." Hours later, the servers hummed quietly again. Naomi restored the mainframe using her mirrored copy, and Ethan's empire slowly came back online. But the man himself, Ethan Shaw, wasn't the same anymore. As the first light of dawn broke through the window, he turned to Naomi, exhaustion and gratitude etched into his face. "I don't know how to thank you," he said softly. Naomi smiled faintly. "Maybe start by not treating people like they're disposable," he chuckled quietly. "Fair enough." But then his expression turned serious. "Naomi, I meant it when I said you changed everything. You didn't just save my company, you reminded me what it means to care again." Her eyes softened. "Sometimes people don't need saving, Ethan. They just need someone to see them." The security team arrived minutes later, taking Liam away. He didn't resist. He just looked back once at Ethan, at Naomi, and for the first time, there was no anger in his eyes, only regret. When the door shut behind him, silence fell again. Ethan turned to Naomi. "You could have let me fall. You had every reason to." Naomi's voice was gentle. "Maybe, but someone once told me that mercy is the most powerful form of justice. I guess I wanted to see if that was true." Ethan nodded slowly. "It is." As they stood together in the soft glow of the monitors, something unspoken hung in the air, not romance yet, but understanding. The kind that runs deeper than attraction, the kind born from surviving fire together. Naomi picked up her cleaning gloves from the table, the symbol of who she was and who she always was. Before she left, she turned back with a small, knowing smile. "Don't forget, Mr. Shaw," she said quietly. "Even the tallest buildings start from the ground someone cleaned." And with that, she walked out, leaving Ethan standing in the light of redemption. And as the city woke around him, Ethan knew the real rebuilding wouldn't happen in his company's servers, but inside his own heart. Days passed. The chaos had settled, but silence had taken its place. The kind of silence that hides questions nobody wants to ask. Ethan Shaw's empire was saved, but he felt emptier than ever. Because while the world saw a billionaire reclaiming victory, inside, he knew he was spared by grace, not power. And that grace had a name: Naomi Carter. She hadn't come to the office since the confrontation. Ethan noticed. Every day. Every time he passed the window where she once stood cleaning, every time he saw her empty supply cart sitting quietly in the hall. It was strange how quickly someone so invisible had become the only person he could see. He picked up his phone more than once, started typing a message, but each time he stopped because what could he say? "Thank you for saving me?" No, that didn't feel right. Naomi hadn't just saved his company. She saved his soul. Meanwhile, Naomi was trying to return to normal life. She went back to her small apartment in the city's south end, the kind of place where the walls whispered stories of survival and the air smelled faintly of old dreams. But sleep didn't come easy. Every night, the same nightmare: her husband's hospital room, the sound of machines beeping, the doctor's quiet apology. Then, the letter, the denial of insurance coverage stamped with the same corporate logo she saw flashing across Ethan's screens the night she saved his system. Shaw Dynamics. Naomi froze the first time she made the connection. She sat at her kitchen table for hours, staring at that old envelope, the words policy exception blurring through her tears. Could it be a coincidence? Could Ethan's company, the man she just saved, have been part of the reason her husband died? Her heart raced as she opened her old file box, the one she hadn't touched since the funeral. Inside were medical records, payment receipts, and that single printed rejection. She read it again, her voice trembling. Request denied. Provider services are not authorized under Shaw Care Subsidiary Policy Code. Her pulse quickened. Shaw Care, one of Ethan's former health subsidiaries. A branch he once bragged about in interviews, claiming it was revolutionizing patient access. But Naomi had lived the reality behind those words, a reality that cost her everything. The next morning, she didn't go to work. She went back to Shaw Dynamics. She walked through the front doors like she didn't belong there, but with every step, her resolve hardened. She wasn't just a cleaning lady anymore. She was a woman carrying truth, and truth has a way of walking through locked doors. When the elevator opened on the 30th floor, Ethan's assistant looked up in shock. "Miss Carter, you don't have an appointment." Naomi's voice was calm, almost cold. "Tell him Naomi's here. He'll see me." Ethan was mid-meeting when the door opened. His voice faltered as she stepped in. For a long moment, he just looked at her. The sight of her again, tired, beautiful, determined, made something twist inside his chest. "Naomi," he said softly, rising. "I was going to call you." She didn't answer right away. She set a worn envelope down on his desk instead. "I need you to read that," she said. Ethan glanced at it, then back at her, confused. "What is it?" Her tone didn't waver. "It's the letter your company sent me 3 years ago, denying my husband's life-saving treatment." Ethan's face was drained of color. He slowly unfolded the letter. The words hit him like punches each line, each cold sentence written by lawyers and accountants, not by human hearts. "Naomi," he whispered, "I didn't know." She met his eyes, and for the first time, he saw not just pain but fury. "No, you didn't care to know. You were too busy building towers and headlines while people like my husband begged for mercy." Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. "You want to talk about loss, Ethan?" He was 34, a teacher. He didn't smoke, didn't drink, he just got sick. And your subsidiary, your so-called innovation in healthcare, decided he wasn't profitable enough to treat. She stepped closer, tears burning her eyes. "I watched him die slowly because someone up there in your system thought saving him was bad business." Ethan's hands trembled as he read the policy code, his heart breaking as he realized what she was saying. He looked up, his voice weak. "Naomi, I sold that branch years ago. It was supposed to help people. I thought she cut in sharply. You thought wrong." The room was silent except for the sound of the rain against the window. Naomi turned to leave. But before she reached the door, Ethan said softly, "I didn't know your husband's name." She stopped, her fingers clenched. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Daniel. His name was Daniel." Ethan swallowed hard. "Then I owe Daniel and you more than I can ever repay." Naomi didn't turn around. "You can't repay the dead, Ethan, but you can decide what kind of man you'll be from this moment on." She walked out. The door closed quietly behind her. Ethan stood frozen, the letter still trembling in his hands. For the first time in his life, money, power, prestige, none of it meant anything. Because somewhere beneath the fine print of his success, a good man had died. And the woman who saved him from ruin was the widow of the man his company had failed. Ethan sat alone in his penthouse office, the city lights flickering below like restless ghosts. He stared at the letter again. The words blurred as guilt consumed him. Then, without thinking, he picked up the phone. "Arthur," he said to his legal counsel, "I want every document related to Shaw Care pulled, every policy, every denial. I want to see everything we did." "Ethan, that division was sold years ago." "Then find who owns it now," Ethan snapped. "I'm not asking as a CEO. I'm asking as a man who's done too much damage by staying blind." The next morning, Naomi woke to a knock on her door. When she opened it, Ethan was standing there rain-soaked, holding a folder. She froze. "What are you doing here?" He handed her the folder wordlessly. Inside were documents, policies, payment histories, and at the very top, a statement marked reversal of denial, retroactive authorization approved. Naomi looked up, confused. "I don't understand." Ethan's voice was steady but heavy with emotion. "I traced it. The decision that denied your husband's treatment wasn't made by accident. It was a deliberate part of a cost-cutting model that rewarded executives for every rejection." Her eyes widened in disbelief. He continued quietly, "And the man who signed off on it was Liam." Naomi staggered back, clutching the papers. No, that's not." Ethan nodded grimly. "He was running that department before I merged the companies. He profited off denying coverage. When I promoted him later, I didn't even know." Tears filled Naomi's eyes, not just from anger, but from the cruel irony of it all. The same man who had destroyed Ethan's empire digitally had also destroyed her life years earlier, silently. Everything came full circle. Ethan's voice broke slightly. "I can't change the past, but I can fight for what's left of the truth. If you'll help me, Naomi, I'll expose all of it. Every file, every policy, every lie." Naomi stared at him, her expression unreadable. For a long moment she said nothing, then she whispered, "You really want to make this right?" "Yes." Her voice softened. "Then don't do it for me. Do it for everyone who never got the chance." Ethan nodded slowly, and for the first time, their fight wasn't about survival. It was about redemption. Over the following weeks, Naomi and Ethan worked side by side. Together, they uncovered hundreds of cases like Daniel's family's silenced by bureaucracy, patients denied for profit. Ethan opened his doors to the press, admitted what his company had done, and pledged to rebuild a foundation in Daniel's name, funding free medical treatment for anyone turned away by the system. But as they fought to make things right, someone else was watching. Liam. From his holding cell, he's been tracking every move they made through old digital backdoors. And the more he saw Ethan rebuilding, the more he wanted to tear him down again. One night, as Naomi closed her laptop, a strange email popped up on her screen. No sender, no subject. Just one sentence. "You don't know the whole truth about Daniel." She froze. The blood drained from her face. When she clicked it open, there was a file encrypted and a timestamp from 4 years ago, the same month her husband died. Naomi's hands shook as she entered her password. The screen flickered, then displayed a video feed from a hospital hallway. Daniel is alive, talking to a man in a suit, a man who looked terrifyingly familiar. Naomi gasped. Her voice trembled. "Ethan?" Her heart pounded because the man on that footage wasn't Ethan. But it was someone who worked for him. And it looked like Daniel had been promised help in exchange for something Naomi never knew existed. And in that single moment, Naomi realized that saving Ethan's empire had uncovered only half the truth. The other half was about to destroy everything they began to rebuild. The truth has a way of changing shape. One moment it sets you free, the next it breaks you apart. Naomi sat frozen in front of her screen, the dim glow painting her face in pale light. The video looped again. Her husband Daniel standing in that hospital hallway, talking to a man in a dark suit. Not a doctor, not a nurse, someone corporate, someone who shouldn't have been there. The timestamp burned into her eyes, June 14th, the night before Daniel died. Naomi's breath hitched as she leaned closer, listening to the faint, muffled audio. "You said it would be approved," Daniel's voice pleaded. "You said she'd get the payment by Friday." The man in the suit replied coldly, "I told you, Mr. Carter, if you want the experimental treatment, you'll need to sign the confidentiality clause. Once you do, we can process the grant. And if I don't, then your case is closed." Naomi clutched her chest. Her husband had been forced to sign something that tied him to Shaw Care in his final hours, and the man who made him sign it was Liam's former assistant. Ethan sat at his desk, surrounded by dozens of cases, hundreds of victims, all part of the empire he once believed was helping people heal. He had been calling Naomi for hours. No answer. When she finally showed up at his office door, her face was pale, her eyes swollen from tears. "Naomi," he said, rushing to her. "What's wrong?" She didn't speak. She just placed a USB drive on his desk. "Play it." Ethan clicked play. The video appeared. As it played, his expression changed to shock, then disbelief, then guilt. When the clip ended, Ethan leaned back, his hand on his forehead. Naomi, I don't know this man personally, but he worked under Liam. He must have. Naomi's voice cut through the air, sharp and trembling. Don't say he must have, Ethan. He did. He made my husband sign something he didn't understand. You're telling me your company didn't even know about this? Ethan's jaw tightened. I didn't know, but I'll find out what he made Daniel sign. Hours later, Ethan's investigators pulled the file. It was buried deep in an encrypted archive meant to be erased. Inside was a document titled Asset Contract Code D. Carter. Ethan's blood ran cold. The contract was labeled an experimental data program, and the company had listed Daniel not as a patient, but as a participant. Naomi's eyes widened as she read it. What does that mean? Ethan's voice cracked. It means they used your husband's medical case as part of a clinical trial without consent. Her knees went weak. She nearly collapsed, whispering, They experimented on him? Ethan grabbed her hand, his own shaking. Naomi, I swear to you I didn't authorize any of this. But she pulled her hand away. I don't know what to believe anymore. That night, Naomi couldn't sleep. The walls of her small apartment felt like they were closing in. Every corner whispered Daniel's name. Every memory felt like a lie. She thought about Ethan, the man she began to trust, maybe even care for, and how, no matter how hard he tried, his world always seemed to destroy hers. She picked up her phone and typed a message she never sent before. I forgive you, Ethan, but I can't fight this anymore. Then she turned off the phone and disappeared. His heart stopped. He tried calling her. No answer. He called her landlord, the hospitals, and the police. Nothing. Hours turned into a day. A day turned into 3. The press had begun reporting his investigation. Headlines read, Shaw Empire faces new allegations of human experimentation. Stock prices fell. Protests erupted. And Naomi, the only person who could clear his name, was gone. Meanwhile, in a quiet motel on the city's edge, Naomi sat by the window, staring at a small flash drive. It wasn't the one she gave Ethan. This one had been sent to her anonymously from the same email that sent the video. When she finally opened it, her world stopped spinning. Inside was another recording of an audio file this time. This is Daniel Carter, final statement for Project Elysium. I was told my participation could save lives, including my own. If something happens to me, please tell my wife Naomi it wasn't Ethan's fault. It was Liam. Naomi gasped. Her tears flowed freely. Her husband had tried to protect her from the truth even as he was dying. Naomi picked up her phone again, her hands trembling, ready to call Ethan when suddenly the lights in her room flickered. The screen on her laptop flashed. Then it went black. The text appeared. You should have stayed quiet, Naomi. She froze. Then a knock at the door. A slow, deliberate knock. Ethan was on a video call with his tough team when his assistant burst into the room. Sir, you need to see this. She turned on the news feed. The reporter's voice was urgent. Breaking news. Naomi Carter, the former janitor who exposed Shaw Dynamics' corruption, is missing. Police have found evidence suggesting foul play. Ethan's chair hit the floor as he stood. His world spun. He grabbed his coat, shouting to his driver, Get the car! We're finding her now. He called every contact, every investigator. Hours turned into panic. Finally, his phone rang. It was a private number. He answered instantly. Naomi? But the voice on the other end was calm, cold, familiar. Hello, Ethan. It was Liam. Ethan's grip tightened on the wheel. Where is she? You should thank me. I'm giving you a chance to finish what you started. Liam, if you touch her... Oh, I won't touch her, Liam said smoothly. But I will show the world the real truth about your miracle janitor. The line went dead. Ethan's car screeched to a halt in front of an abandoned data facility, one he recognized instantly. It was Shaw Dynamics' old backup server site, long decommissioned, but Liam had always called it his playground. The gates were unlocked. The lights flickered faintly inside. Ethan entered, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Naomi tied to a chair in the middle of the room, a projector in front of her flashing her husband's image on the wall. And behind her, Liam is smiling. You took everything from me, Ethan, he said, so I took the one thing you cared about. Ethan stepped forward slowly. Let her go, Liam. This isn't who you are. Liam laughed. Who am I? You made me this way. You built your empire on lies and called it virtue. You left me to take the fall, and now you want to be the hero. He grabbed a flash drive from the table. This contains every file of every dirty contract your company ever made. If I release it, you lose everything. Again. Ethan's eyes burned. If that's what it takes to stop you, then do it. Liam froze. He hadn't expected that. Naomi looked up, tears streaming. Ethan, don't. Ethan's voice softened. I already lost everything once. This time, I'm not losing you. Liam's rage exploded. He threw the flash drive at the server. Sparks flew as cables tore loose. Ethan lunged forward, tackling him as alarms blared. The building lights flickered violently. Naomi screamed as the fire alarms went off. Get her out! Ethan shouted to the guards bursting in. Smoke filled the air. Liam and Ethan struggled. Two men, one driven by revenge, the other by redemption. Finally, Ethan's fist connected. Liam fell back, hitting a power conduit. Electric sparks danced across the floor. Ethan froze, and in that instant, he saw fear in Liam's eyes. But before he could pull him away, a bright flash. Then silence. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was outside, coughing in the rain. Naomi was beside him, crying. Paramedics swarmed the site. Liam? Ethan croaked weakly. She shook her head. He didn't make it. Ethan's gaze fell to the ground. He didn't know if he lost an enemy or another part of himself. In the days that followed, the files were recovered. Every secret, every lie exposed to the world. Ethan named the new foundation the Daniel Carter Trust. Naomi spoke at the press conference. Her voice was calm but resolute. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's choosing peace when the world gives you every reason for war. Ethan stood behind her, silent, the man who had once lost everything, now learning what it meant to truly start over. And though the world would never fully understand how a billionaire and a cleaning lady changed each other's lives, they knew the truth because sometimes redemption isn't about what you rebuild, but who stands beside you when the ashes settle. The city of Chicago shimmered in the early sunlight, unaware of the battles fought and won in its shadows. Shaw Dynamics had survived, stronger than ever, but the most profound victories were not measured in dollars or contracts. They were measured in trust, resilience, and the connections forged through adversity. Ethan and Naomi walked together through the renovated office, past the humming servers, the gleaming floors, and the bustling employees who now knew her name. Not as a janitor, not as someone overlooked, but as a hero. The transformation was complete. Ethan stopped in the center of the office, turning to face Naomi. You didn't just save this company, he said, his voice quiet but intense. You saved me. You reminded me what really matters, and I can't imagine facing the future without you by my side. Naomi's eyes shimmered, reflecting both pride and emotion. Then don't, she said softly. We face it together. Weeks turned into months. Naomi led Shaw Dynamics' new cybersecurity division, her brilliance recognized and celebrated by everyone who once ignored her. The company thrived, new contracts poured in, and the media hailed her as the woman who turned a billion-dollar disaster into a story of resilience and hope. Ethan, meanwhile, had learned lessons that no boardroom could teach him. He learned to see people for who they were, not just their job titles. He learned that humility wasn't weakness, and that asking for help was a form of strength. Most importantly, he learned that the greatest successes weren't measured in profits, but in loyalty, trust, and courage. One evening, as they stood in the refurbished server room, the very place where everything had turned around, Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, simple ring. Naomi, he said, his voice trembling, you've given me everything without asking for anything in return. Now I want to give you something. Will you stay with me? Not just as a colleague, but as someone I want to build a life with? Naomi smiled through tears, the weight of the past months washing away. I chose this a long time ago, she said. You just took a while to notice. They embraced the hum of the servers around them, now a comforting background to their shared victory. The city outside, once a silent witness to chaos, now reflected the promise of new beginnings. Shaw Dynamics' story became legendary not just for the corporate triumph, but for the human story at its heart. A tale of betrayal, resilience, and the extraordinary courage of one woman who refused to be invisible. And Ethan and Naomi? They lived the rest of their lives, proving that miracles don't always come in grand gestures. Sometimes they arrive in the form of a quiet, steadfast presence who refuses to give up when all hope seems lost. As Chicago's skyline glowed at sunset, one truth remained undeniable. The people who walk past us every day might just be the ones who save us, if only we take the time to see them. And that, my friends, is the story of Ethan and Naomi, a reminder that miracles aren't always loud or obvious. Sometimes they walk quietly beside us, unnoticed, waiting for the moment we finally see them. Remember this: the people society overlooks may hold the power to change your life. The person you ignore today could be your salvation tomorrow. Second chances are real. Hidden heroes are everywhere. And hope is just one encounter away. So look around you. Notice the unseen, trust the unlikely, and never underestimate the impact one person can have on your life. Because sometimes the greatest miracles come in the most unexpected forms. If this story touched your heart, share it. Comment below who you think deserves to be seen. And don't forget to subscribe to Unbroken Truths. Let's celebrate the invisible heroes among us, because everyone deserves to be recognized, and everyone deserves a second chance.